Hi Nasdaq followers, Emily Drury here, and we are sitting down for another episode of Nasdaq Spotlight. Today I have a very special guest, Sam Dennigan, founder of Strong Roots. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, really appreciate it.
So this is a really exciting time for your company, and we're going to get to that, but let's start over from the origin story. How did Strong Roots come to be?
Well, I've been working in food most of my career. I started working in my family's business when I was about 19. Which was a fresh produce business. We were procuring products from all over the world, and when you're working in a kind of a perishable industry, you kind of have to get really inventive very quickly. So after about 10 years, I decided that I really wanted to try a brand. Previously to that, I had been in art college, and I loved designing. I'd always loved logos, and Strong Roots was the third time that I'd created a brand for food, and the first time one's been successful. So it came from originally being in a family business and other parts of my roots, excuse the pun.
I love it. So for those of our audience who's watching from the US who might not yet be familiar with Strong Roots,
Sure.
give us your pitch.
So it's tasty, plant-based food designed for busy lives. We're in the frozen section of the supermarket. You'll find us between potato and vegetables and meat substitutes. And we quite simply do simple, real food. So it's a combination of vegetable fries like beets and carrots and parsnips. We do veggie burgers. Our famous one here is kale and quinoa. And they're just really, health conscious, healthy lifestyle, plant-based, all vegan. Most of the products are free from all allergens, and they just taste great.
So plant-based is a bit of a phase right now. How do you feel about it being categorized as a phase, and what was behind the decision for you to do plant-based?
Sure. Well, actually, to be totally honest, we entered into the business of food to sell really great tasting products that were good for you. Mm-hmm. The plant-based and vegan trend has just skyrocketed since we entered the market, but the consumers continued to tell us that they wanted something very specifically plant-based. Plant-based is far from a phase, and the difference between it being a fad and a phase rather than something much more long-term is because there's an environmental aspect to it. There's a huge amount of sustainability associated with it, and it can make a change. So people are both nourishing themselves for personal health, but they're also helping with planet health at the same time, and that's why I think you'll see it for a long time.
So talk a little bit more about how it does help the planet for people who might be watching.
Yeah, I mean, it's broadly known at this point that the reduction of the consumption of animal products is a direct cause and effect to greenhouse emissions. We have to be conscious that what we're doing to the planet is in a lot of ways harmful, and by taking simple steps, something as simple as maybe changing your diet to flexitarian 2 or 3 times a week is going to aid that in a huge way. So it's about trying to do simple changes as opposed to trying to change the world all in one go.
So if everyone in the UK switched all of their dinners to Strong Roots every single night, we'd see you.
Well, the point is that by 2050 we need 1.5 planets to sustain the population of the Earth. We don't have that. Mm-hmm. So how are we going to help change it? It's not too far away. It's only around the corner. So it's about a mass agreement to change, an actual action as opposed to just talking about it.
So in that regard, it's beneficial for you guys to have other competitors in the space because it's all a piece of this universal change, correct?
Absolutely. You can't do everything yourself. We're part of, what I see as a movement, mm-hmm. and the more the better. So, I personally mentor lots of young startups who are trying to come into the same space, not necessarily frozen, but in other elements, and anyone who can help, I try and help them.
That's fantastic. I think that positioning it as this movement and you're a part of it also helps the brand when it comes to it, because people want to feel connected to this bigger piece.
The consumer wants a purpose-driven brand. You know, we started out as, you know, a company with a product. We've adapted because of the consumer. The consumer wants us to be better. They want us to use better ingredients. They want us to change our packaging, and we take their lead. The company's always been about what the consumer wants, as opposed to, you know, what can we squeeze out of this production line, or where can we, you know, shave the numbers to make more profit. It's always been about the consumer, and will continue to be.
So, what does the consumer want next? What are they asking for?
Yeah, this is a question I'm asked all the time, and it's quite difficult to answer without giving away our trade secrets. But I think consumption is changing hugely. Instead of 3 square meals a day, people are snacking constantly. I think the new average is about an 8 times a day consumption. So we've got to make products that fit into that. Our products at the moment fit into a kind of an evening meal backup solution, which is healthy and convenient. And I think we'd like to go and discover more of the convenience channel, you know, grab and go options. We also want to make sure that our products have much more kind of holistic nutritional balance. So we've started using various different natural ingredients, things like, you know, plant-based proteins, to fortify the products without changing them to be unnatural. All of the ingredients in our products are, you know, very, very clean. So we have to be conscious that we want to keep it like that.
And when you're talking about growth in that regard too, then you have to be able to scale getting those ingredients. And because they're not inorganically produced, it's probably a little bit more difficult. Yeah,
well, I mean, that's my background. You know, I was involved in procurement of fresh raw ingredients for nearly 10 years. So the kind of the intellectual property that we have is this knowledge around data of crops, what's coming next, what the consumer is increasing before it becomes a huge market commodity. So we know things usually more in advance than a kind of a traditional food company that's built on just the brand alone. A huge part of our business is based on the agriculture, and that kind of gives us an edge.
So here at Nasdaq, we're big on data. You know, we're rewriting tomorrow. So
obviously,
without giving away any of your secrets, what kind of data are you tracking, and what have you found to be the most valuable?
Consumer.
But consumer, like what they're, you know, how many products they're buying, that kind of thing?
I mean, everything. So we investigate various different baskets of data. We'll look, you know, qual and quant, various different movements of how people are shopping, how lifestyles are changing in the home, how the fact that, you know, people are eating as just for themselves much more often. So you're tailoring things for individual choice. Now in the home, you might have 3 different dietary requirements where there's one shopper purchasing for all occasions and all of the people. So understanding not just that the person walking down the shopping aisle, or indeed shopping online, is not just purchasing for themselves, and you're trying to influence and market to the people at home who are not making the purchase decision. So it's getting more and more complex all of the time, and without the data, all we're going to be doing is making punts. It's okay when you're a small company, but when you're a bigger growing company with new investors, you've got to be much more sure, much more often.
Well, that's a perfect segue to part of the reason that you're here today. You've had some exciting news. So tell me about that and what you expect to do with it.
Yeah, so we, about 9 months ago, we made the decision that we wanted to bring on a partner. It was very important that the potential investor was a company and people who I could personally work with. You know, there's a lot of peaks and troughs. So I wanted to make sure that we picked people as opposed to just the capital. So we've raised just over $18 million in a minority equity deal with Good Partners, LLC. And yeah, we're really excited. It's the growth fund that we're going to need to launch further into the US market, as well as make sure that our UK market continues to grow and has robust foundations to be able to stay there and eventually become a household brand.
So presumably you'll need data again to figure out what works in the US market versus the UK market, because it's probably quite different.
Absolutely. And we're sweating that at the moment. We have to choose, because of the expanse of the US market, we have to choose specific markets to launch in. So one of the things that we're using data in at the moment is to see where frozen is over-indexing in various different places. And actually it's quite surprising of the regions that come up versus the store distribution that we have. So more than ever now, it's about calculated risk in specific areas, as opposed to just jumping in with 2 feet, which is what I'm used to be honest.
Can you tell us which regions? I'm very curious.
I could, but then everyone would know, and they would be competing for the same space and driving up the prices of everything. So
fair enough.
Yeah, and in the future.
Absolutely. You'll have to come back and tell us once,
no problem.
Once that's all public.
No problem.
Is there a brand in the US in the food space that you look to as someone you'd like to emulate, or that has done a particularly successful job at launching a new product?
Sure. I mean, for 3-4 years, I actually worked with the Green Giant brand in the Irish and European markets. I think they're kind of a flagship for me, and a company that's built a brand over such a long amount of time. And it's one of those things that everybody knows. Everybody knows the advertising. Everybody knows the products that they do. And they've been able to build a platform out in a couple of categories. And that's the one that kind of incited this move into the space and with the brand. There's obviously smaller brands, like, one of the massively beneficial things to our space at the moment is what's happening with Impossible Foods and Beyond Meat. And the more people that know about the category in general is going to bring more shoppers in. So what those guys and gals are doing is fantastic for us.
We think so too.
Yeah.
So if a shopper is heading to the frozen aisle tonight, sees your products, which one should they try first?
I think you would be crazy to not try our cauliflower hash browns. They're healthy, they're tasty, and they're kind of addictive as well. So I would try those out.
All right. Well, I'm going to take your advice on that, and thank you so much for coming in to Nasdaq Spotlight.
It's been a pleasure.
Congratulations on the
Thank you so
funding,
much.
and I hope to see you again soon.
Cheers.
Thanks everyone for watching. You can find more Nasdaq Spotlight